Hey guys, it's Angus, and today I'm going to be giving you a movie review of Horns. So unfortunately my camera has been out of action for a couple of months, and I'm actually trying to get it repaired, and that also means that I actually have to use my other tools as well, which means I'm using my webcam at the moment, the Logitech C920, but I've still got my mic as well, and I'm still going to be sort of doing the same style as well. So anyway, apart from that, Horns is actually quite a weird film because when I was watching the trailer, it really did not give the impressions of what the film is actually about. And to be honest, I actually had no idea what the hell it was about at all. Of course, the main thing that attracted me to this film was Daniel Radcliffe, and also the genre as well, with the darkness and the music as well. But apart from that, that's all I really got around, is that Radcliffe was in the film, and of course everyone knows where he is from. So anyway, Horns is trying to be a horror film. I think it is a good horror film in a way, and it's more on the side of a fantasy film due to the context. To be honest, I didn't really have a huge interest in Horns, but I thought it was quite good because the way they released it at the time was around Halloween, and I thought it was the only good sort of horror film for the genre in that date, so I thought it might be worth going to see anyway. So I didn't actually know this until after the film, but Horns is actually based off a novel written by Joe Hill, and it's actually won a Bram Stoker Award, which was the book, and because of that, the book obviously got adapted into the film. So the film, and presumably the book as well, is based off this character called Ig Parrish, and he's got this girlfriend, and you can sort of see the story of it, and it sort of starts with his life, and they're both young as well, and then it goes straight into when they're much older than all adults. And then it sort of just gives the idea that this guy really likes her and that he's really falling for her, and this relationship is everything, and that is what it really shows at the start of the film. So it does show a couple of scenes when they're sort of together, and you can sort of really get the idea straight away, and I think that's quite good as well, mainly because of Daniel Radcliffe's acting and also because of the supporting actor. But all of a sudden he sort of wakes up and she's been raped and murdered, and this is what has been also shown in the trailer as well. So I don't want to give any spoilers away, so I'm not going to go straight into what actually happened because that will give it away, and I'm not going to say whether he did it or not because that is really the whole point of the film, because the trailer starts from that, and I believe that is what one of the reasons you want to go see the film is to find out if he did it or not. So again, if you've seen the trailer, then you'll know that everyone believes that Ig did it and he killed his girlfriend, and that is one of the reasons why it's quite tense as well, because it's sort of a crime as well as a horror. So when he wakes up in the morning and he's found out that his girlfriend is being killed and raped, his life sort of just goes downhill from there, and it just gets more and more shit as the film develops on. So more and more scenes after that, he gets more drunk, and again he wakes up, and it's got this quite cool cinematography where it's sort of the way you would be upside down and then it tilts it, which I thought was quite good. And then it sort of starts his day as well, and then from there he's sort of hungover, and then he looks in the mirror and holy shit, he's got horns. Now I didn't really think that the visual effects was going to be much of a challenge for the team who made this film, but to be honest, I'll give it to them that they made the horns look really realistic, and it did look really good. So if you've seen films that Daniel Radcliffe has starred in, then you'll know that he's a really solid actor, and he does a really good job in Horns. He's scared as hell, and he doesn't know what to do, and what happens next is actually really interesting, and I think this is one of the reasons why it was based off the novel, because it's got some really, really good context underlaid in the story. So of course he doesn't actually know what the hell is going on, and he goes to this doctor, and straight away the doctor starts doing really, really weird shit. And at first it's like really unexpected for the audience, especially for me as well, because I just couldn't understand what was going on. And then more and more characters start doing more and more stuff, and it's really good because after a while you start to realize that it's not actually them, it's actually the horns, because it's only when Daniel Radcliffe is around them, or Ig Parrish. And then what I believe is that it's bringing the devil out inside them, mainly because he's been the devil, therefore it's bringing them out, and it makes them do loads of weird shit, and basically brings out all of their darkest secrets, and I really like that because it's really good writing as well. So technically it isn't actually original because it is based off the novel, but I think it's really good because they do it in a really good way, and for the characters and the actors as well, it must have been quite a difficult job because they have to do such weird particular stuff, but I think they did it really well, and I think it made a lot of sense because for some people it's going to confuse them, but for people that spend more and more time thinking about it, then they'll eventually realise that it's actually more symbolism and religion. So the people actually can't really see the horns apart from himself, and because of that, they sort of bring out the really sick and twisted thoughts, and I just think it's really good, and that's one of the main themes in the film because that continues throughout. So one thing I was really glad they did in this film is they went back to his childhood, and I've seen a lot of films where they don't do this, and if you've watched all of my reviews then you'll know that I mention this a lot. I really like it when they go back to previous scenes and the past because it explains a lot about the character and the context, and that's what they did in this film, and I think it was really good. I think it may have been from the book, but I think it was especially important in this film because if you didn't have the past and the previous scenes, then you wouldn't have really understood it as you were meant to. And from there, they go back to his childhood and when they first met and more stuff like that. So once the flashbacks start happening, you eventually get to have a better understanding of the character's development, and also you get a better idea of the character's personality and the reasons why that happens, because you see them when they're older and it goes back to young, and it builds up and it makes more and more sense. And surprisingly, they actually spend quite a lot of time on the childhood. I would probably say maybe 25% of the film. Now, I would actually say that's actually quite a lot, but I liked it because it made it more original, more interesting, and also it's sort of technically another sort of film and another sort of story because you've got the story of in the present and then you've got the story in the past as well. Now, it's quite ironic because I usually do say that having flashbacks is really important, but in this case, I thought the flashbacks were actually a little bit too long because they did drag on. So one thing I thought, of course, was good in this film was the flashbacks because it explains a lot about the audience, and then it introduces other characters as well, and I think that is kind of clever because it makes more sense of why those characters are like that in the present. I think another really good thing about this film, of course, was Daniel Radcliffe. He does always give a solid performance, and that was expected in this film, and that's what he did. Now, I've definitely seen a lot of critics say that this is Radcliffe's best performance. I'll probably disagree with that, obviously. I've seen a lot of his films, and I think that he's definitely done better in other films as well, but I don't think this was his best performance. He certainly did do a good performance, but I don't think this was his best. Now, that's not to say that his performance wasn't good. It's because he did even better in other films. But he did some really good stuff in this film. Like, I thought his American accent was really good, and he was really emotional, and I really cared about the character, and that's what's important. So the two other supporting actors in this film was Max Minghella, who was from The Social Network, and also Juno Temple, and I think they both did decent jobs, to be honest. I don't think they were the best supporting actors that could have been in the film, but I think they did a good enough job, and that is really what matters as well. So definitely the special effects was one of the main features of this film, obviously because it was showing the horns as well, and also other spiritual stuff, and I thought it was good enough. And at the end, there was actually some stuff which I'm not going to say, but I thought was really good because it was dark and it was tense, sort of in a way, but I thought it wasn't incredible because it's not a really high budget film, but I thought it did a good enough job, and it looked kind of cool as well. I also liked the original score and also the selected music from the film. Now, the music wasn't that great, and to be honest, this is a low budget film, so I wasn't going to expect any good stuff, but I thought again it was good enough. It could have definitely been better, especially for the genre as well, but I thought in some ways it was well suited to it, and again, it did a good enough job. So there were actually quite a lot of things that I didn't like about this film, and I'm not really surprised because it did very poorly in the box office. It only grossed $2 million. Now, for some that's quite a lot, but considering the budget is very bad, and I'm not surprised really, and here are the reasons why. So firstly, I wasn't entirely confident what the genre of the film was actually meant to be. In some ways it really did hint horror and crime, but it was sort of one to the other, but it kept on going back and forth to other different genres. Now, usually some really good films do that, but in this case and in this film it just was really confusing, and to be honest, it wasn't really scary at all. The reason I'm saying that is because if it was meant to be hinting at horror, then it didn't work because it wasn't scary and it wasn't really that tense. If it was meant to be crime, then it wasn't really crime either because it just wasn't really violent and there wasn't enough stuff to suggest to it. And also, the flashbacks just dragged on, and at the end, I just got too bored of it. They probably took a good chunk of 40 minutes out of the film just to do the flashbacks, and I think that's a little bit unoriginal because it just felt like they didn't have enough stuff to screenplay, and because of that they used the flashbacks to make it a good length. And to be honest, that's kind of annoying in a way, but in some ways it sort of recovered because it was well developed and also it was helpful for character development. Another thing is that there were so many unexpected and random scenes. Now, as I mentioned before, this was part of the context, and yes, there are those scenes, but there are other scenes that just didn't make no sense at all, and it didn't flow properly. And it sort of ruined the film in a way, because it was tense in one moment, and then another it was really funny and random. Now, again, some good films do that, but it just didn't work in this film, and to be honest, I felt it ruined it. Another disappointing thing about this film was definitely the cinematography. I really thought they could have done a much better job on this, and I just felt it was lazy as well. There were some good shots, sort of tilts, and it did work, but to be honest, I felt that in the opening shot and other opening shots, it just didn't work, and I felt it could have been a lot better. And to be honest, there were some good shots, but straight after that, I completely forgot about those, and they just weren't significant at all. Also, what I didn't like was the ending as well. Not because of what really happened, but what it really ended on, if that makes sense. Now, again, I'm not going to spoil it, but in terms of the context throughout the whole film, it just ended randomly, and I didn't feel that it ended it properly. Now, again, that could be due to the book, and they wanted to keep it that way, but I thought they could have made it better, and it was just weird. Overall, I would give Horns 6.7 out of 10. Now, there were some really good stuff and bad stuff, but I felt that it just didn't do good enough for what it was meant to be. It was meant to be a tense horror film, if it was trying to be that, but it just didn't work, and it was annoying because it sort of released in Halloween time, and it sort of gave the idea that it was meant to be really scary and stuff, and it wasn't at all, which I found disappointing, because that I felt was one of the main features of the film in the trailer, but it wasn't that. But there were still some good things, like interesting special effects, and there was some good religious stuff in the film, and also I thought Daniel Radcliffe's performance again was really good. To be honest, I thought it was a pointless film and that it shouldn't have been adapted from a novel, because there were so many novels that could be adapted, but this one was, and it was just pointless because while there was some really good stuff in it, I thought, while integrating the flashbacks and character development, I thought that it just didn't work properly. And there were some good, decent performances from the cast, but again, it was just a pointless film. It was unasked, and I thought it was unnecessary. Now, I probably wouldn't recommend this film. If you want to go see Daniel Radcliffe, then that's fine, because you'll enjoy his performance, but if you're not expecting a good film, then you probably want to go see it as well. But if you want to see a good horror film, then this just isn't one of those. So that is my review of Horns. If you did enjoy it, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and thanks for watching. Hey guys, it's Angus, and I'm going to talk to you about changing your Windows 7 operating system so it can make it look like an Alienware theme. So I didn't actually realise this after the film, and it's actually a film based off a novel written by Joan... So I actually didn't know this after the film, but Horns is actually based off the novel written by Joe Hill, which has got the same name, and it won the Bram Stoker Award. So I didn't actually know this after the film, but Horns is actually based off a novel written by Joe Hill, and one of the reasons